Hello, my friends, and welcome back. Thank you very much for being with me again today. What do we have here? Well. Maybe for some this is big news, but for the rest of us is just a confirmation. And it's a confirmation of something that the Russians have been saying regarding Zelensky. Russia recognizes Zelensky as the de facto leader or head of the regime in Ukraine. But as the Russians kept saying many times before, we recognize him in charge. But I don't think he has any authority or legitimacy to sign anything. That's the first topic for this video. The second one, the Vice President of the United States of America, J.D. Vance. He says again, I will explain why I said again, he's going to say again that the war can be ended in 6 months. So, September, October, November, December, January, February. By February, we're done. 4 years, we're good. Peace of our time. Remember when the other guy said that I will stop it in 24 hours. All right, but we're going to discuss that. And again, Vance says something that is baboonish, but it's good at least that they acknowledge it. Russia will have a seat at Ukraine security guarantee talks. Talks. Of course they will. How about Russia will allow you to have a seat at the Ukraine security guarantee talks? I think it's actually the other way around. But Russia says, okay, давай, let's go, let it be. And then when things come to a certain kind of apex, they will say, oh, sтой, that's it. And everybody's going to be like, what? I thought that we are the master of the ceremony here. You're not. All right. And then everybody will be, the Americans I'm talking about, will be like, whoa, the Russians changed. Oh my God, the Russians lied. No, you attached to you a badge that you did not earn, which is I am the mediator. I am in charge. Yeah, I will allow them to come to the negotiating table. Yeah, I will allow them to have a seat at the security guarantees table. Who? You allow me? Remember. All right, let's go and start with the first one. Sputnik. Russia recognizes Zelensky as the de facto head of the regime, not de jure. De jure means legal, de facto, as a fact, it is, man. It is what it is. And they are ready to meet with him in this capacity. Now, for all the people over there, oops, I disappeared. Some of you wished I disappeared. So, for all of you guys, or the guys who think, oh my God, it's a big change. There's no big change. They said it. Under our interpretation of your constitution, you are not legitimate. You are the head, de facto guy in charge. People listen to you, but we don't recognize you. We think that you don't have the legitimacy to sign any papers. So everyone who's going to say that the Russians don't want to talk with the Ukrainians, with the guys in charge of Ukraine. You have to understand, and I'm pretty sure you understand, it's a difference between the Ukrainians and the guys in charge of Ukraine. You have to understand that. Because if you start by that, you understand who's in charge of what. It opens different doors for you to figure out who's behind all this, who are the profiteers, and then you're going to go to why these guys in the United States of America, Canada, France, are against Russia. We're going to figure out Russia kicked them out. All right, I'm not going to, hit that black horse, a dead horse. Moscow. Russia sees Volodymyr Zelensky as the de facto leader of the current Ukrainian administration, who has the legitimacy to negotiate on Kiev's behalf, but not to sign a truce. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov said, and I'm going to quote him, we recognize him as the de facto head of the regime, and in this capacity we are ready to meet with him. When we come to a stage where you have to sign documents, we would need a very clear understanding by everybody that the person who is signing is legitimate. And according to the Ukrainian constitution, Mr. Zelensky is not at the moment. End quote. All right, my friends. So they are ready to talk to him, but in this capacity, you cannot sign anything, according to Russians. Well, you may say, obviously, well, we don't care what you think about our own government, our own how we run our countries and so on. Well, if that's true, then don't call Putin a dictator anymore. Because you don't recognize Putin because you don't like, but you call him a dictator. But he was involved in elections, Zelensky was not. So if you don't want us to interpret your garbage, then don't interpret our garbage. Capisci? Comprende? Okay? Move on? No, they don't want that. Because they're not just, they're not fair. They're not like, all right, man, let's solve this problem. Let's bring everything we got here, or at least what we can. Bring everything here, and let's discuss, man, honorably. Yeah, man, I lied here. But you lied over there. The other person says, yeah, I lied over there too. It's a beginning, but you can't say, well, I think you're a dictator, but ours is a elected official. How in the hell Zelensky is legitimate, but the other guy is not? Because you say the other guys purged elections. This guy did not even stand for elections. Anyway, let's move on. Next one. This comes from the Ukrainians. Russian foreign minister says Zelensky has no legitimacy to sign documents with Russia. So, see, this is right here what the guy said. This is from Sputnik. Russia recognizes Zelensky as de facto head of regime. That's what he said. And he's ready to meet with him in his capacity. They don't say anything about signing, only afterwards. The other guys choose the other way. Russia foreign minister says Zelensky has no legitimacy to sign documents with Russia. Not that these guys recognize him. So it's the same thing. I think they're going to cite him right. And I'm quoting, we recognize him, Zelensky, as the de facto head of the regime. And in that capacity, we are prepared to meet with him or meet him. But as for signing legal documents, when we get to the point where we will be signing documents, there must be a clear understanding on the part of everyone that the person who will sign these documents has legitimacy. Under the Ukrainian constitution, according to the Russians, Mr. Zelensky does not currently have it. What would you do? What would you do? I would like a document to be legal, even though documents were legal could be just stamped upon. I mean, look at us. Where are we in the COVID garbage? Do we have the freedom of walking around, getting together, free speech, going wherever I want as a free person? Well, all that was trumped. Just like that. Emergency. Now, that's why when you sometimes sign a document, they can come back and say, you know what? We take a shit on that document. Let's negotiate again. And say, well, it's illegal. What are you going to do about it? That's always trickles down to what can you do about it? Now here, it's about ending a war. Right? Now, do you really, let's say there's a chance to end this war, or whatever it is over there. Do you care if it's Monday when we sign documents or Tuesday? Do you care if the Russians like Tuesday and we like Monday and we're not going to sign any documents with the Russians, we're not going to end the war because they want it to be signed on Tuesday and we want it on Monday? Would you, for this small detail, jeopardize the peace? Signing a peace? I wouldn't. So in this case, let's say the Russians say Zelensky is not legitimate. He can negotiate. What does it matter if they will have all a recognized guy in charge? Well, the Russians will say, well, to be recognized, he has to be the guy in the Duma, or they have to hold elections, conduct elections. So what are they going to do? Conduct elections under who's the... Why are they afraid to run elections? They can fudge them anyway. I mean, please. It's security guarantees first. Why is Zelensky afraid of Zelensky? Of elections? You can't stop free people to say, we want you out, just because you say, it's a war, I'm going to protect you, you have no rights, because I said it's martial law. And those guys in the Duma agreed with whomever, that's martial law. You stop the free people from expressing their will in, I don't like you, you got to go out. In this situation, the Ukrainian nation is caught by the balls by these guys in charge of the Ukrainian nation, they cannot vote. They cannot change them as long as these guys are at war. So do you think the guys in charge want to have peace? They are in charge, and the Russians are not blowing them up. Therefore, I'm in charge, man. I'm in charge. I'm very important, actually. I'm very important. There's a chance that if I lose the elections in Ukraine, I would be not as important. Right now I am. I go to the White House, I go in Europe, where everybody rolls the red carpet for me because the sign was given. Who's Zelensky? What's Ukraine, after all? You know what I mean? All these Westerners all of a sudden love Ukraine. Really? They love Zelensky. I mean, they have to love Zelensky's sign, but Ukraine, I don't care about that. So here you have, my friends, these guys say, sign the documents, have someone legitimate, stop the war. I would be more, that's a detail. The Russians recognize him, the Americans must recognize him, the Ukrainians will recognize him, and that's it. Sign it on Wednesday. Or at midnight, Monday to Tuesday. Is that a big problem? If Zelensky signs a document, or I know Jubachkup signs a document, doesn't really matter. That's why, and remember, these guys are in charge because it's a war. And they can be forever if the war is forever. So, do you want to take a chance? And they can fudge elections. They're going to conduct elections and Zelensky wins with 99%. So, who's going to say what? And it's going to be, at that point, he's going to be the legitimate ruler of the government, not the regime. What's so hard? Do it, man. You've done it before. Many people did it before. They are doing it and they will do it. Why? Because that's the way we are, human beings. God's best creation. All right, let's go to Mr. Vance, who says, according to Ukrainska Pravda, J.D. Vance hopes Russia's war against Ukraine can be ended within 6 months. Okay, well, I think a pig can fly. Or I hope. U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance has said he hopes that Russia's war against Ukraine can be ended within 6 months, not beyond. Oh, what's that magic number? All right, this is what he says. We have a president who is engaging in energetic diplomacy to try to stop the killing. What about the Middle East killing, Vance? Crickets, para crickets. Nobody dares. That's as it should be, and I think the American people should be proud of it. The American people, I think, should be going to the guys who initiate the war, and they are not located in Moscow, so you should not be proud of nothing, fellow Americans. And whatever the outcome of this is, whether the war ends in 3 months or 6 months, hopefully not beyond, but maybe we should be proud that we have a president who is trying to stop the killings. Correct. But why is this president tries to stop the killings only here in Ukraine, but not in Palestine or, I don't know, Gaza? Or why not? I would like to hear that one. Well, you know and I why that is. That's for when you say, well, thou shalt not kill. Well, and they say, well, yeah, but under certain circumstances, am pula mea then. You know what I mean? Well, you should not cheat on your spouse. Unless, I mean, is it or is not? How would you like it? So the same here, wants to stop the killing. How about that killing? He's not interested whatsoever in that killing. If you tell me, Emil, he needs time. Do you tell me that this energetic guy can only focus on one thing at a time? Remember, he stopped the killing between Pakistan and India in the same time. Just like that, he bragged, which the Indians say, no, that was not true. He stopped the killing with the Yemen, didn't he? Just like this. Somehow, poof, he doesn't remember about Israel and the Palestinians. Why? You have values or you don't have them at all. You can't just have selective values. Anyway, so 6 months, good. It's good to aim high, everything that comes under is good because you already are going high. I'm okay with that. And let's see here how this Vance and the Americans are allowing the Russians to show up like the poor relative at a Christmas party, sit at the table by the kitchen door or toilet. God damn it. That's the way I would feel if I would be a Russian. What do you mean you tell me that? Who the fuck you think you are? Here, Sputnik. Russia will have a seat at the Ukraine security guarantee talks. Vance. Oh, thank you very much, Vance. The US does not believe the conflict in Ukraine will end overnight, but is still hopeful that peace can be achieved within the next 6 months. Hoorah! He said the two key issues that must be resolved for peace in Ukraine were territory and security guarantees. For whom? They never mentioned Russia. It's only Ukraine security guarantees, not Russia. Now, why do you want to secure Ukraine's or make sure you put in writing Ukraine security guarantees, but you didn't want to do that in 2021 when the Russians were looking after you like dogs in heat to have some signatures from you to guarantee their security? Why was Russia's security unimportant? But Ukraine is so important. I tell you why. Because the Russians went to war, smacked these imbeciles, and now these guys, don't shoot anymore. Okay, but hey, we allow you to come and give us, you're going to be at the table. No, you're losing. You are losing and you don't want to fight anymore. Because you know that more than this can get into something else that you don't like. You have children, you have a life, you have a good life. I don't think Vance wants to be just blown up, or Trump with all his empire and his dynasty that he's trying to put together now. He wants to be blown up because of a fucking Zelenskyy and some Ukrainians and some Russians somewhere, I don't know, 8,000 miles away from his locations where he gets blown. Huh? Do you think he wants that? Do you think he's so principled? Yeah, for the peace and stop the killing, I will endanger everybody. Please. All right. Russia will be involved in talks on security guarantees for Ukraine. The US maintains its position of not sending troops to Ukraine, but is actively engaged in security safety assurance for Kiev. Okay, with airplanes. So, my friends, Russia, they allow the Russians to be involved. Or maybe you shouldn't even talk like that. You should not even talk like that. Well, I will allow you to enter the room. Unfortunately for you guys, Russia kicked the room in, the door in, and is in. You just spin it. This thing in Ukraine will be portrayed like this. If it ends, let's say tomorrow it ends, whatever the outcome is right now, Putin over there, these guys over here, whatever the little thing, NATO, the United States of America, and Ukraine, the Western world will claim victory. Yeah, so will the Russians. So we have two victorious parties, but someone must have lost something, don't you think? But they will portray it like this. There's the same portrayal of JFK with Khrushchev. We fuck the Ruskies, even though it was the Soviets. Ruskies, man. JFK looked across the table to Khrushchev, and Khrushchev was like, that's exactly how it was not. But that's how these guys are teaching that incident. The Cuban crisis, the Cuban Missile Crisis, that's how they portray it. We show them, man, come closer, we take you, and they tell you this, they tell you just parts from the whole thing, narratives. They never start with the beginning. How did it start? You know how they say it started? The evil Russians, because they always put the Russians with the Soviets like that. Not the Ukrainians or the Jews or, I don't know, the Baboonstans or the Romanians over there or Kazakhstan. No, they're going to always put these guys. Not the Baltic states, nothing. Or Belarusians, Malorussians and Skroforussians. No, nothing. So the Russians, the Ruskies just decided to hurt us. And they said they will deploy missiles in Cuba just because that's the way they are, bad. That's how they start the story. But that's a lie. That's a lie. Thank you very much for being with me again today. Yeah, they allowed the Russians to show up at the negotiation table, at the security guarantees. Again, the Russians allowed the Americans to play the role of negotiators. Not negotiators, mediators. Mediator is in the middle, right? And media is between the two because the guys in the middle are impartial, are neutral. You tell me how impartial and neutral the United States of America has been and is as we speak. He's not. So then, out. Thank you very much for being with me again today. But at least they speak. They should speak as the losing party of this war because they're not winning. Russia is still there. The goal was not Ukraine. The goal was Russia. Stay strong, stay smart, look for the truth, and be just.